There has been a surge in conscious marketing in the food industry. You can look almost anywhere and you can find companies advertising things like cage-free and non-GMO. An example being Kroger with their Simple Truth in-house brand. Their eggs right on the carton say cage-free and grain-fed. And places like fast food venues have started offering fresher food and healthier options. An example being like Wendy's. They have, fresh, never frozen beef. And McDonald's, they used to have a 3-burger menu back then when they first opened. And now they have an enormous menu with a dedicated salad section. And the healthier options are things like, Diet Coke as opposed to normal Coke. Yet this seems counterintuitive because it obviously is going to take more money to produce any sort of cage-free thing. I mean, you're raising less chickens per acre and stuff like that. It's much more costly to run a temperature-controlled refrigerator in the back of a truck instead of just straight up freezing it and, not caring about how cold it gets in the truck. And, just having to offer 2 different types of Coke, that's 2 different manufacturing processes. So all of this costs more money. And anyone with a basic understanding of economics knows that a business's ultimate goal is to spend the least while making the most. So why is it that all of these companies are putting forth the money and the effort to make their food greener and healthier? It's actually quite simple. They want to make a culture in which convenience is first and they are the sole provider. Okay, let's break this down. I'm going to start with the buzzwords. They use words like cage-free, a seemingly simple label. Anyone reading it understands what it says, cage-free, it's in the name, pretty simple. And for the most part, it's true, but that's all that's true about it because it literally just means there were no cages involved. According to Kate Good from onegreenplanet.org, cage-free only means that they weren't in cages. Not that they were outside freely roaming, not that they had a lot of space. It was just there were no cages involved. They may have had access to the outdoors, but typically in these sort of chicken farms, it's a warehouse crammed full of them, and they just kind of stand around and do their thing before they're, taken and, butchered for their meat, the ones that are used for meat, and the ones for eggs, they just lay. And they still use this label, even though it really means nothing to anyone who is willing to research, because it's convenient for them, not so much for you. Because somebody will see it and say, oh, it's better for the chicken. And even if that isn't true, because we know it isn't at this point, it's convenient for them because most people don't care enough to take the time and confirm the claims that they may have made. And will even pay extra for it because, come on, look at this chicken. I certainly wouldn't want to make it suffer any more than it has to before it reaches my plate, and I'm sure that others think the same. That's what these corporations are taking advantage of. They know that most of us are busy and will not take the time to look deeper into what the bright and colorful packaging is telling us. We take it at face value. This is because the marketing is just designed that way in general. A video by the channel Compassion World Farming goes into the secrets of food marketing and how they play into our natural laziness. It's no secret that we probably won't do anything if we won't have to. Part of the reason I'm doing this assignment is because I have to do it. I probably would not have gone out of my way to do this one, but we are naturally lazy. So we aren't going to look into anything. We don't want to. It's easier to just go on about our day than to have to look into everything that is put in front of us. And another reason why the marketing works is that we, on average, are not that bright. Look at this. Do you think that this man thought that out? No. And according to a study done by the Innovation Center of U.S. Dairy, 7% of people think that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. So, take that as you will. You have to remember how smart and dumb the average person is, and that half of the population is dumber than that. So, it's just how we're not smart. We are dumb, and corporations have been using this fact, combined with the marketing, to make us pay more for the same, because they can put these meaningless labels on anything and most people would not even notice. They can slap grass-fed on beef or lamb or whatever actually eats grass, and like I said, it's a meaningless label because for grass-fed, the they don't actually have to be fed grass for their whole lives. They can be fed grass for like a week, and then they're fed the grain full of like hormones or whatever that makes them bulk up real fast and all that. And no one will look into it because we're lazy, and two, we'll just take the label at face value. It's right there. It says grass-fed, must have eaten grass, and we'll just take it as it is. According to a paper by Elise Pause and Monique Potvin-Kent, children in Toronto, Canada have many advertisements regarding food shown to them. Now, although this paper focused on unhealthy foods, we can transfer some of this information to our discussion, because what this really boiled down to wasn't so much the why, but what happens when they're shown this. And basically, what happens is, they start only thinking about that. As a child, you absorb pretty much anything that's put in front of you in terms of knowledge. So they will take it and just think of it as is, and they'll take it as fact and knowledge. And so that's why some kids always think about eating like fast food, sports drinks, all that, because nowadays with the internet, that's about all everyone ever talks about. Like, oh, we went out to eat. We're getting dinner at this place and such. And that can be applied to these healthy foods, because especially on younger children's channels, you can see advertisements for like healthy like drinks, like nutritional supplements and stuff like that. Yes, they're targeted towards parents, but the children see them, and they start thinking, oh, that's healthy, even if it may literally just be like a minute difference, like we had explained earlier, where cage-free eggs are literally just chickens in maybe the exact same building, but with no cages. So that's what they're after. They want to ingrain the thoughts, visuals, and taste of certain kinds of food, in this case, healthy food, so that they can form habits that can continue into adulthood, and that way when they're adults, they will continue to buy said foods. So why do they go out of their way to do all of this marketing and product development and manufacturing? Well, it's quite simply just money. Let's say you're a butcher who owns a store and raises his own cattle. You have complete control over every aspect of the meat you produce. You decide what you eat, whether it's grass or grain, and how you treat your cattle, whether they're confined to the barn most of the time or whether you let them roam around during the day and such. And let's look at it from a business perspective. You make a certain amount of money. It's more than enough, but it's not like, oh, you're swimming in it and you aren't having to worry about paying the bills to maintain the business and yourself. And you hear about organic food selling for more than non-organic food. That doesn't matter to you, because all of your stuff is organic. You raise it. You raise cattle, feed them grass, and you let them roam around as they please during the day. Now let's look at it from the meat plant's perspective. They typically feed them specialized food for growth, stuff with hormones in it to promote quick growth as opposed to healthy growth. And their meat sells for less than yours simply because you have the freshest meat you can get. You raise and butcher your own cows, and they have theirs like grain fed or something, and they're confined, so they're not exactly like the strongest cows. They don't have the most meat on them, but the hormones make up for that. So they hear about organic food selling for more, and so what do? They just go, and every cow that they raise from here on out, they feed it grass the first week or two that it's eating solid food. After that, they go back to feeding them grain. So what happens? Now they can put grass-fed on the label for the package, and they just pour some money into the advertising, like I had mentioned before, marketing and ingraining thoughts into people's brains, and call their meat organic, and the money begins flowing in. They can charge more for it, and they only spent, let's say they spent 10 cents per cow per day more, but they're making 4 times the profit margin over that now because it's organic. Now let's think about it with chickens as well. You're a chicken farmer, right? You raise them, you make sure they're safe and they have enough space to move around, you feed them bird seed and all that, and make sure that they don't get eaten up by other random animals. You can only raise a few because you only have one chicken coop, and they just kind of sit there and they have their own free range, right? When you sell them for a lot, because quite literally it is the most organic chicken out there. It's sure you feed it grain, but bird seed is literal seed, as opposed to like a specialized feed formula. And they live freely on a range. They're not confined to a small building. They are able to move around as they please. They're going to sell for a good amount of money. Now, the chicken plant, they're going to see that organic chicken sells for a lot. So what do? Well, they take all their chickens out of cages, assuming that their chickens were already in cages. They take them all out of cages and they just put them in a warehouse, put all of them in there, and now they can label it as cage-free. Now that they've labeled it as cage-free, the value of it immediately goes up, even though literally not much has changed other than the fact that they just kind of took them out of cages. Could be the same building. As long as they aren't in cages, they're fine. And then they put a small doorway in the building that leads outside to a small fenced-off area. And now they can even put the free-range label on their chicken, because the only qualifier for free-range chicken is they have had access to the outdoors at some point. Doesn't mean they had to be out there. They just had to have access to it. So the door could be super small and like maybe a few chickens get out there, but like it's super crowded. So like the ones at the very end, on the opposite end of the door, they probably never see it. They probably never go outside. They're always inside, huddled together really close. And that's it. But they get to put another label on it. Quite literally, they've spent almost nothing and they're making so much more. And they do the same thing. They put money into marketing. Tell everyone, hey guys, look, we have cage-free, free-range chicken. And you just keep pumping that message out there, and eventually people will start believing it without questioning. That's why they do all this. That's why they put a little bit more money into the manufacturing and, raising of animals and all that. And that's why they pour money into marketing and all of that. It's so that they can make just that much more money. It isn't about actually being better for the animals. It isn't about being healthier. It's a business venture for them that they see the opportunity in. They see that people are willing to pay more for almost the exact same product, and most people aren't willing to dig deeper into it. And so they take this opportunity and they're milking it, quite literally. They are doing all they can to streamline this process so that they don't have to pay much, if anything, more, while charging you more. Because like an organic gallon of Kroger Simple Truth milk is about 4 times more than a normal gallon of milk from Kroger too. Their same brand, not Simple Truth, but it's a Kroger brand. That's all it is to them. It's a business venture, one that most of us have fallen for because we do not care enough to study about it.